All right. Welcome again to day one of Dreamforce. If you're really interested in analytics or want to know about your Lightning adoption, the usage of your org and your user base, this is the session for you. I'm William Ye, Senior Product Manager here at Salesforce on the Lightning platform. Specifically, I own the instrumentation part of Lightning. For those of you who might be a little confused, instrumentation is essentially like the analytics part of Lightning. We built this brand new user interface for you and want to have the insight as well to understand how we can continue to innovate. Before I begin, I just need to go over this slide with you guys. I'm sure you guys have all seen it many times today, and you'll see a lot more throughout the week. It's our forward-looking statement, and essentially we ask you to make any purchasing decisions based on what's readily available, since we're a publicly traded company. And also, I'll be showing you a lot of internal stuff as well as some of the forward-looking things. So please keep that in mind. And here's our agenda today. We'll go through a kind of brief history of what we do on the instrumentation side, how we instrument at Salesforce itself, as well as a quick example of product intelligence. After that, I'll kind of walk through what you can do right now and what's coming, which is the more exciting part, the Lightning Adoption Dashboard. And we'll have some time in the end for Q&A, because I'd love to hear from you guys. This is something that we're just starting to do at the very inception. So please feel free to save your questions for later. So first of all, Lightning itself. We're built on the same thing as you do. At Salesforce, we're actually using the same tech in and out. Lightning Experience itself is a giant single-page application filled with thousands of Lightning components. And it's a major shift from our classic UI, right? Classic, it's server-side. You have Visualforce pages that's pre-rendered, sent out to you, versus in Lightning, we have a brand new UI framework on the client side. So this changes a lot. Even though we're changing the framework itself, we're not changing the platform. Everything you have in the metadata still stays the same. That's why we can have a smooth transition for any customer from Classic to Lightning. However, Lightning itself is not just a reskin, right? We added a lot of new features in there, so we need to understand the adoption of it and also the gaps and how to continue to push innovation. We need to understand our own strengths and weaknesses, and this is where the need of analytics comes in, right? In the classic server side, you don't really have that much power on instrumenting because everything is pre-rendered, and most we have is server logs on cloud operations when the record is updated and whatnot. But with the client side, we can do a lot more finer grain analytics, like when a button is clicked, when a hover is done, etc. So how do we get this set up? The first step is really to set up a metric service. This is where we build into our core platform. Our logs is just like any other logs within the platform itself, user login and Visualforce page and whatnot. The difference here is we need to make sure we're capturing the data consistently. A login log is basically counting whenever someone logs in and increments a one. But when you're looking at UI, right, we're building a platform that Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, different clouds are using. We need to make sure that we're not double counting certain interactions, as well as making sure the performance metrics are consistent. Because if it's not uniform, then you might measure performance one way versus the other team measure the other. And those data won't be very valuable for us to measure against. And also, we need to provide a service within Salesforce, because we don't want them to rewrite their own code all the time. For example, if we want to change how we measure performance one day, then all of the teams will need to go back and rewrite whatever they did. And therefore, having a metric service here kind of set up the foundation to help us understand the analytics. Then we go into our locators. So this is how we identify components within. This is not something that customers can see right now, but we're looking into ways that we can expose more information. Locators is a way for us to identify components itself. So like I mentioned earlier, we have thousands of components. A lot of them are actually nested as well. So for example, when you have a button itself, you won't rewrite button 1,000 times. You will kind of embed them into different components to reuse them. And that's the major difference why we can just assign an ID to all of the individual components, because then you'll need a governance body to make sure that the components are consistent, and if you reuse them, right? You will get the same count even though the context might be different. You can have a button in account and a button in opportunity. So how do you differentiate between them? And so we took the metadata-driven approach here as well. We have a tag called the locators, and basically we look at the component's parent and get the context of it to give it an identity of itself. In this case, here's an example, tab bar, content tab. So I have a content tab within the tab bar under an entity, which could be opportunity. And that's how I would know which exactly element is being chosen by the end user. And of course, once you identify it, it doesn't really register until you have a log in there. So interaction is our transaction to our logging system. Interaction can be clicks, can be hovers, or even other custom events that you might have created. Whenever you navigate away to tab or UI, that's when we actually push a log into the org, because we want to make sure we're not inhibiting your overall org performance. We wanted to make it as seamless as possible. So what happened when we put that all together? So this is our output. We have our logs in Splunk. That's where most of the tech and product and product people live. They go in and query logs, and then they can create reports out of these Splunk data, as well as capturing all the non-instrumented features in our feature catalog. So that's how we continue to know these are the features that we have notified and things we need to improve on. And of course, at Salesforce, we're big at drinking our own champagne. So we use Wave dashboards to visualize these data, as well as creating like an executive view. So maybe you guys have heard of the org62, which is our Salesforce internal Salesforce org. And executives in there can see what's the latest metrics on certain usage. So with that, I want to quickly show you guys what it kind of looks like in internal picture before we move on to the external side. So here's what Wave dashboard might look like. This is just dummy data for Dreamforce use case. So it's not actually reflecting the use, but we do have the similar metrics set up. So we have a product data science team that focus just on creating these awesome dashboards to help executives understand their adoption. And in this case, we can look at different cross-cloud features that is out there, look at how their penetrations are, how are they being used. We can drill into it. So the whole data pipeline will actually end up in the Wave dashboard for the use. But how do you first generate this initial data set? So this is just a demo org I have. When a product team has instrumented their feature, they can use an internal tool we created on Chrome plugin to look at the instrumentation. So in the instrumentation dashboard, I can come here and, for example, I want to see how often people are clicking details. I can click into related details, news, and it shows me a screenshot as well as the context of these individual features. And that's how Salesforce ourselves capture the usage. And of course, say I want to see the usage of these two, I can click and hit next. And I will see the actual dead name and contents. I can even create a Splunk query out of it. So this is a pretty awesome internal tool we have right now. And the end output is here, which is our catalog, the one I mentioned earlier. This is where we kind of store different features that we're tracking, and that's how you PM or developer will work with product data science at Salesforce to talk about what dashboard need to be created next. So that's all great. We got these internal tools set up, but what does it really mean for you? What can you do right now? I get that question all the time. So right now, unfortunately, there's really only two avenues. First of all, third-party analytics. I know a lot of developers already do that using whether it's Google Analytics or Adobe. You put a snippet of code into wherever you can customize, say Visualforce page, Lightning components or whatnot, and you're trying to listen to that. But the problem is, there's only so many areas you can programmable change. You can't really listen to all the data, as well as there's a compliance risk because you're essentially writing data outside of your org to a third party. We do have an internal option, which is the event monitoring solution. So this comes with a Shield offering, where the main goal is to provide you logs from Salesforce for auditing purposes and security. And it does include part of our logs. So you get a raw log from our log line to see when the page is being loaded and things like that. But you do need a Wave tool or other third-party tools and export them to process it in order to make meaningful use out of it. So it's still quite challenging. So I'm quite excited to share with you guys that for Spring 18, we're targeting to limited pilot, a brand new Lightning adoption dashboard. This is a out-of-the-box solution that provides you reports and dashboards in your org to show you the usage within your org. Our goal is to provide you insights like we have within Salesforce to look at your adoption, right? Upstairs, there's a Lightning Launchpad. If you haven't visited, you should check it out, where they kind of walk you through the whole transformation to get your org transition from Classic to Lightning. And the first thing they will tell you is to look into the main persona you want to target on and figure your transition path for them. Now, once you put a set of users into beta, you can't really tell how well they're engaging. And you can do surveys and things like that. But with this tool, we can provide you more usage, like what's the daily active user count, monthly active user, and what's the most visited pages, so you know where to invest in and how to better your overall Lightning experience. And as we get closer to spring, more information will come. But this is just the beginning. We want to hear from you. Understanding the usage, adoption, that's a beginning step. But I'm actually looking into more. So we just started this project very recently. There's more to come, of course, like custom components, which we currently are listening to, custom namespaces for developer and partner use case, as well as just a simple question like, how's my custom page performing or being used? And so I'd love to hear from you. Any thoughts and comments, any questions that you're trying to achieve. I've been talking to a lot of customers, and this is something we want to continue to do. Before we get to questions, I just want to quickly plug here. This is a new super badge that we have on the Lightning component framework. It's about 10 to 12 hours, and it's a really good setup to help you kind of get to go end-to-end on developing Lightning components, from app builder to JavaScript and things like that. So it's something good to have under your belt. And with that, I will open for questions. These are my contact information, so if you have any comments or things you want to see in the dashboard in the future, please feel free to reach out to me. Questions? All right, great. Well, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We don't have too much in-depth detail yet, but as I mentioned, as we approach spring, the pilot information will come out, and that's when you can get nominated for the selection. Thank you.